So in this video, I'm going to use gameplay video because with the whole support Singed drama argument going on, I feel like both supports in this game that I played actually represent both ends of the spectrum of what is going on, kind of, or at least what kind of is the problem. And in this game, just to clarify, I'm on blue team, I'm playing Jinx, and then the enemy's the red team. My support, the Nautilus, he communicated every time he thought he was going to leave lane and roam and do something else, so that I knew ahead of time, hey, play safe, I don't have Nautilus to back me up if something goes wrong. The enemy support, meanwhile, the Leona, she felt the need that, hey, my team kind of sucks, so at a certain point she just decides she's not roaming just for the sake of roaming and being impactful, she's roaming because she just wants to get kills and get fed and do stuff herself, and she even admits later on in the chat, like in chat to all of us, that she's trolling. So with that said, the reason I bring that up is because I think that has to apply to the Singed situation, just because the problem with this Singed support isn't that he's playing something off meta. It's not that he's playing something that's not looked at as a conventional support pick. It's not that he's taking Smite and counter jungling. It's just the fact that he's not communicating to his team what he is doing, and as such they're saying, hey, this doesn't make the game fun because now our AD carries on the island, for example. They don't know what's going on, and maybe they're even feeding because they're outnumbered. And we don't know what the Singed is doing because he's not talking back to us. We don't think he's trolling, but at the same time he's not responding to us, so we don't even know what he's doing to even try and defend. Hey, he's not trolling. Oh, okay, he's counter jungling, so we can switch things up. We can decide what to do from there going forward. Because in this game that I played, for example, there are times where, hey, yeah, if the AD carry is outnumbered, it's easy pickings, right? That's the whole complaint about why, quote-unquote, AD carries are weak right now, which is a video I'm going to do for another time. But the general argument isn't that AD carries are weak in the sense like they don't do damage and things like that. It's that if you leave them alone, though, they're going to die. That's just how it works. They're a team-dependent role. That's kind of how it's always been. Even if it seems like now more than ever, that's not the thing that's changed, right? And some people are just kind of like, that kind of sucks because, you know, 5-man bot lane dives. It exists because the AD carry, they're going to be weaker when they're outnumbered. They don't have the agency that other roles do and stuff like that, blah, blah, blah. Not to ignore that, but again, that's a video for another time. In this particular video, why I bring that up is getting dove 1v3, for example. I got dove 1v3 because my support wasn't there. And it wasn't my support's fault for not being there, because even if they were there, that's just a strategy, right? That's just something that's going to happen anyway. Even if you're not left on an island, you scale, I don't want to say worse, but because you're in a dual lane, you share experience, you share levels, you're not going to be as strong as, you know, the solo laners and the jungler who are all getting solo farm and experience. So that's just a strategy that works. But with that said, when it's communicated that, hey, I'm going to leave, you know, mid laners getting ganked a lot, they're getting camped by either the enemy jungler, even though the Leona's not really for her team, she is attacking mid lane quite a bit, I'm going to go see if I can go help them. So just play safe, don't do anything like stupid, and just, you know, farm. And for me personally, I'm a Jinx. I'm not going to be very powerful until I hit 3 items anyway, so I have no problem with that personally. But at the same time, like, the argument for the support Singed is, because there's no communication, the AD carry he's playing with can't be like, oh, I get it, I'm going to be in this lane alone, so I just need to play safe, or something like that. Like, I'm not saying all these AD carries in his game's probably fed, but I am saying because you think maybe they're going to place a ward and come back, so maybe I can push this up a little bit, because they're going to be rendezvousing with me by the time I reach here, and then they never come, and so now you're like, oh, I guess I'm caught out, because I thought I had backup that's actually never coming. You know, things like that can make the game a little bit unpleasant, right? Because you think a certain way, and we don't have voice chat, right? If you want to communicate with something, you have to take the time to type it out in chat. And if you're in the middle of doing what I call like the dance, which is pretty much when two, like, you know, enemy champions, the two teams are close enough that a fight could break out at any moment, so you're kind of dancing back and forth between, do we auto attack, or do we launch skill shots, or do we fall back? In that moment, you don't have time to type, hey, what are we going to do right now? Like, you get jumped the moment you stop moving, right? So communication in this game, that's part of why people make the argument for voice chat. So when you don't have it, it does leave some things up in the air. It just makes things kind of confusing. So in Riot's defense, so to speak, they're not criticizing Singed for playing something off meta, it's just the lack of communication. Because when my Nautilus communicated stuff, yeah, I almost got 1v3 dove, but it's not because, you know, it's just because that's a strategy. It's not because the Nautilus was just being neglectful. The Nautilus was communicating when I should play safe, when they were leaving, and then when they were on their way back to lane, so then we could try and fight the lane. So, on the other end of the spectrum, the Leona, I feel like, was kind of like the other end of the Singed spectrum, in which case, she wasn't apparently really communicating with the team, or I guess she was, but only really the flame. She wasn't explaining that she was just going to go full AP, build Moby boots, and do stuff like that, and kind of just make the game different. And that's part of the problem, I think, is that the Singed wasn't doing something in-game particularly that was like terrible, he was counter jungling. And the thing about counter jungling, for those that don't know what counter jungling is, you pretty much want to help shut down the enemy jungler by taking away their camps, which is their only source of income. Unlike a laner, in which case minion waves spawn every 15 seconds, so you can get gold off of that, jungle camps spawn not necessarily that frequently and also not in that many numbers, so getting gold isn't as easy if you're not ganking. If you're like a power jungler, you need to power farm to level 6 to have good ganks, and someone's just in your jungle taking your camps away, it does make your life a little bit harder. So the strategy itself is not bad, it's just that that's not communicated to the team. So that way the AD carry, like for me personally, when it comes to off meta and when it comes to strategies that are not the norm, I really don't care. Honestly, if you're gonna carry me playing support Jax instead of playing like a more meta support, I'm perfectly okay with that. But the thing is, just let people know what you're doing. If you're gonna counter jungle and I'm playing something like Jinx, maybe I really can't even survive in a 1v2. Even that's not even a good idea. Even if I freeze the wave or something like that, I'm just gonna get dove over and over, or they're just more of a duelist AD carry and I can't stay in bot lane without feeding. Then it can be at least a strategy going in. Okay, if that's going to be the case, do we just surrender bot tower and like maybe I go counter jungle with the support, so we have like 2 people in there, and then every now and then we rendezvous with our jungler and we just like deep invade, like 3-man gank other lanes, stuff like that. Like we can switch up and make a more winnable strategy where less of us feed and we're all also just on the same page more consistently if the communication comes out. So the whole reason I'm even making this video is because I think it's lost in the translation that people are saying, oh, so Riot's against off meta supports, they're against the off meta period. How can you be that way when you don't enforce the meta, but you actually do enforce the meta? I don't think that's necessarily the problem. I think the problem is just the lack of communication. Now, with that said, I don't agree with Riot that it actually deserves a ban. Like, I get it's annoying, and I'm not going to try and say if you're annoyed by when this happens to you, get over it or something like that. You have the right to be annoyed, right? You can feel however the heck you want to feel. But personally, I don't think it warrants a ban. The only things I think really warrant bans in this game are if you're trolling, like being racist, slurring, homophobic, things like that. Like those are what I think are worthy of a ban. I don't think playing something, even though you're lacking communication and so it does suck, I don't really feel like that's ban worthy, because for me, when I hear that, I look at the potential of voice chat and the fact that I hate voice chat in games personally. So if that ever does get implemented in this game, I'm never gonna use it. I'm just letting you know right now, I'm gonna stick to pings. Ping was my best friend growing up. Look, we can Mulan this all night long, but I don't like the concept of voice chat. I would not use it. So does that mean I would get potentially banned for being like refusing to communicate with the team? I would hate if that's the reality. So that's the one part I do disagree with Riot with. But I think people are mad at Riot a little bit for the wrong reasons, because it's not that they're against off meta, right? When Support Misfortune came out, it was fine, right? They weren't like, oh, we gotta go hit up like Gorilla and be like, hey, don't do that again or else you're gonna be in trouble there. It was more so, hey, this actually was a good strategy. It was countered Zyra. They're not against that. It's just, there are the rules right now. For the meta that they don't want to enforce, there is a meta that is in place that people, whether they agree with it out loud or not, do it, agree to, that is there. Top laner, jungler, mid laner, bot laner, and support. And furthermore, not even support for any lane that you want, is just, you better just support the bot lane. And again, like we mentioned earlier, it's because you're going to be behind, the AD carry is going to be probably lower in experience. Granted, if that was a solo lane, maybe not so much, but then it comes down to a mobility thing, right? Like the mid laners, if you get ganked, you probably have mobility in your kit or something that will help you dodge it without having to use flash. Top lane, you might just be too tanky, why bother ganking you? Bot lane, you're going to be squishy and probably have the least mobility as a whole entire class. I'm not saying like Ezreal doesn't have mobility, but as a collective class, like mid laners and top laners probably have more mobility built into their kits as a whole than bot laners do. So that's why also one of the reasons why bot lane is usually a target. That's why they need a support there to defend themselves to begin with, because they probably need that extra help to stay alive. So it's an unspoken rule what the meta is, even if they don't enforce it. So yeah, in the Singed player's defense, there isn't a lot of variety. It's a good strategy to counter jungle, but there's not a lot there to really help you be successful, except communication, and that's where I have to defend Riot in that point. Just communicate to your team what's going on, because you might get an AD carry like me who's like, I really don't care what you're doing as long as we win. As long as when the in-game screen hits it says victory, to be honest, I'm good. I don't even mind getting carried. That doesn't mean I'm gonna feed and like not try or anything like that, but I'm not one of those people that like, if I'm not carrying, I don't even want to play this game. Yeah, sure, I'd love to carry, but if it's just one of those games where I just don't have a good game, but the top laner is, then so be it, right? Just communicate the stuff. That's all it's really needed, is just some communication. By all means, hey, you want to counter jungle? Maybe I go rendezvous with mid laner and we just 2v1 the mid lane, or I do the same thing. I just roam with the jungler and then we have multiple man ganks. Just something like that. So just communication. I think that's really the bottom line of this whole scenario. Just communicate with your team if you want to do something different, and it might work out, and you probably won't get permabanned, which I do. Again, I kind of disagree with the permaban notion just based off after that, but that's just my opinion on the matter. This is the part where you can add your opinion on the matter, but that's all for this video. Thank you for watching if you did watch this far. Life is full of a lot of kinks, so I don't know which video will be next, so until next time, take care from the Fire Good Eye FS.